What's happening, people? I'm what you need. You're watching my channel, and the title this time is New Breed. For those of you who want to donate to my channel, it's by Western Union. You can check me for details as well as um, you can always like, share, subscribe, comment. This is going to be a short one. So, Vasily Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez is going to come out. Teofimo Lopez, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the older guys of the new breed that's coming up. We got a lot of young fighters coming up, who are 12 and 0, 11 and 0, that kind of stuff. And you got to watch out for these kids. Some of these kids are contemporaries of some of the guys like Tank and so on. But believe it or not, this new breed or new generation of fighters has already happened. They're already on the scene. Boxing's kind of like turned over. All of the old breed, we got some of them hanging around. But basically, Lomachenko is like an old vet already. Things are turning around really fast. And Deontay Wilder, all those guys are vets. Jamal Charlo. And the new breed that's coming up right now, they are the next, okay? The oldest of the new breeds like Ryan Garcia, Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez, them guys. They like the older versions of the new breed. There's a lot of young fighters coming up, and their philosophy, the training, the stuff that they're getting in boxing now is second to none. Um, they're going to be better. They're going to be better. So um, I think we're looking at the class of 2000, and right now I think the class of 2016, 2017. This is what we're looking at right now. That's the new breed that's coming out, and they are having opportunities like no other business. I was looking at some of the younger fighters and the fighters that will be sparring the world champions today. And we're so, like, people don't even realize how far away we are from a Manny Pacquiao generation. Manny Pacquiao generation was the 1990s. In fact, Pacquiao came out in 1995. And we're talking about the generation 2016, 2017. That's like roughly, believe that's like 20. Is that, I think I got my figures right. Yeah. That's like 31, 32 years from that time. You know what I'm saying? That's a separation. So so you guys can understand, boxing has come so far from those last 30 years. Boxing is it's almost like completely changed, almost like a snake shedding its skin. It's completely shed its skin from those times. And you know, I can't explain to you how this information age has accelerated things so that people have access to things in a whole different kind of way. And well, that's why we talk about new school boxing. New school boxing. It's still built on the tenets of old school boxing, but it's just a totally different thing, you know. Um, and some of the new breeds coming up, and some of them are contemporaries of the old vets, but they just haven't gotten their shine yet. And then the guys coming up that I was talking about, the class 2016, 2017. Right now, that's what's coming up, and it's crazy. It's really crazy. I was looking at, how people even define a boxer today is different to how we define boxers of yesteryear. The sport has changed so much. Um, but a lot of people don't realize that. Like, they don't realize how much the sport. If you were somebody that used to watch boxing in the 80s, for example, or the 90s, the Mike Tyson days, or the um, Sugar Ray Leonard days, or God forbid, the Ali days, which would be the 70s and 60s. Boxing's just totally different from that now. Like, totally different. And the only way for somebody to see, you have to actually show people and chart how the sport has gradually changed from that point, and it's a hell of a lot more scientific now. Like almost everything's a calculated move. Like the way how boxers are doing things today in this day and age, very calculated in what they do. Um, and so it's just different. I mean, there's no other way to put it. I talked to you guys. I talked to you guys about the training methods, and how certain training methods are obsolete. But we also have certain boxers now have found much more simpler ways of doing old school things in the ring, um, tactically, strategically, um, employing certain skill sets certain ways. And some of them have gone back into the old archives, but some of them have brought forth new things. Even the training we see actually use, they don't use mitts. Like sometimes they don't even use mitts for mitt work. They use these poles sometimes, or they use the little, like something like that looks like a racket. It just different tools and techniques and different methods of doing things. It's changed so much, you know. But that's just talking about doing mitts. And some guys they actually do self mitts. Isn't that crazy? You don't even need a trainer to do mitt work, and it's just like the world has changed. The technology has changed, and the only way is if you see these guys training. Now, why did I talk so much about training and sparring and gym work? Well, because that's how you prepare for a fight. Okay, and the mindset today is different, I believe, than the last 30 years. Okay, the last 30 years, the mindset is different. And the mindset today is one of fighting smarter, okay, not harder. And so, how do you fight smarter on the day of the night? You have to put in all that work that is necessary before you face the guy on the day of on the night. So, and also maintain a certain level of fitness, a certain standard, a certain way of taking care of your body. Now, that wasn't something that was um, exclusive to this generation, okay? But the manner in which now people take care of their bodies, rest their bodies, use their bodies, work their bodies, feed and maintain their bodies is completely different. So because the technology has improved in terms of preservation of the body, and I had this dispute with a certain gentleman who was talking about, oh, they went 15 rounds and 20 rounds, and some guys went 100 rounds and 40 rounds. I'm like, yeah, yeah, against who? What was the conditioning of that person? What was the pace of the fight? What was the tempo of the fight? What conditions were they fighting under? You know, I listened to some of these guys talk about how fighters back in the day they would sometimes they fight in conditions that were 100+ degrees Celsius, and I told them, well, it's actually easier to fight in heat than in cold, especially if you're not warmed up yet. Because in cold you're losing energy trying to keep your body hot, and it's actually harder conditions to fight in cold than in hot. You guys can think about what I'm saying. So what would impress me more is not guys fighting in very, very hot temperature, because you could always rehydrate yourself in very, very hot temperatures. You know, and if you pace yourself properly, you got a good lather, you got a good sweat, you're perfectly warmed up. You don't have to worry about nothing. You know what I'm saying? You at your peak. The hotter it is, and in gyms, sometimes gyms exceed 100 degrees Celsius, right? It's about being warm. Now, if you're cold and you go into a ring cold, you can get knocked out really quickly. And cold conditions, I think, are more challenging. So when I watched Sean Porter face, I can't remember who it was, I think it was Udanis Ugas in the StubHub, what was used to call the StubHub, in cold conditions, I thought that was much more challenging for him than in hot conditions, if you guys really think about what I'm saying. And that was an outdoor arena. But anyway, my point is that the things that athletes can do today athletically makes a big difference in how training and preparation for fights happens. And yeah, like I said before, there were certain old school tools and old school methods that are not no longer being used, and that's just a process of change. But at the same time, the attitude of the fighters is also different. They're not just going to go in there with and just bang for bang's sake. We see one or two of them do it today, but they're not just going to bang for bang's sake. They will bang out if they have to, but they do it in an intelligent and smarter way than back in the day. It's not just reactive. Guys who have limited skills or who don't know how to maneuver their way around the ring because they don't understand the hows of doing things. I think they have a harder time and they have to bang out at inopportune moments. And the guy who's in control, he more than likely can really seize the moment and win the fight. But um, you know, it's a bit different now. But with this new breed that's coming out, I'm really impressed by them. Um, you know, and we might just get Teofimo Lopez versus Lomachenko now. Because Lomachenko is showing that he wants to fight, showing that he knows, he understands the importance of having a fight like this for Top Rank, for ESPN in this season. Now that both guys just have to test negative for COVID-19. All the details that need to be out. Hopefully, I'll see them both in the ring, right? I don't know if Vasily Lomachenko's getting the majority of the pay-per-view probably or what, but hopefully we'll see both of them in the ring. Hopefully that fight comes down for this year because it looks like the Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder fight seems to be in jeopardy now. And what looks like Tyson Fury looks like he's going to duck Dillian White and he's going to duck Anthony Joshua and he's going to duck uh, yeah, I use the word duck because the guy he's looking to face is some tune-up fight. You can take a voluntary tune-up fight, and that sounds like a stupid ass way to go for Tyson Fury. And I'm disappointed in him because it looked like he was going to rematch Deontay Wilder. All of a sudden, he doesn't. That's not a possibility. I don't understand what's going on. Why would Bob Arum enable that, and also Frank Warren? I think Tyson Fury once again is dropping the ball on stuff. He's been training all the time, so he should take a fight. If it's not Wilder, it should be Dillian White. Dillian White does have Povetkin this year to handle, so I can understand why it wouldn't be Dillian White right now. Even though they could probably make a last minute change and have Dillian White face Tyson Fury. And then but if that's the case, then do the Anthony Joshua fight. And they say, well, there's not no crowds. Well, there's no crowds for Vasily Lomachenko versus Teofimo Lopez either. Okay, we don't know if we will get any crowds by October. Hopefully, we do. But I just find it really sad that they're kind of compromising things. They're kind of putting things in a compromise sort of perspective, and I think that Tyson Fury's situation just does not. It never really is impressive. It's like it starts off impressive and then it just dies off. Okay, so I'm not fully impressed by that. But to see Teofimo Lopez versus Lomachenko happen this year would be a brilliant thing. Would be a great thing for boxing. It would really help the sport because a lot of fights are falling through. Obviously, Showtime is doing their thing and they're getting their fights off. I'm impressed by it. And Steve Fulton still has to face Angelo Leo, so we can look forward to that fight. I'm still amped for that fight. Really, that's the fight I want to see. And that's breeze out there. Inside of here is so hot. So I'm looking forward to that. You guys leave in the comment section what you want to talk about. But this was New Breed and a new breed coming out, and they really mean business. I was looking at some circuits by some young fighters and some Mayweather promotion fighters and some other fighters out there, and I was looking at how they're doing their circuits inside the Mayweather Boxing Gym. I was also looking at Benavidez, David Benavidez, on what he was saying on the WBC, as well as Cecilia Brackets, talking about the new breed again, all these young, very skilled fighters that are coming up from the amateurs into the boxing ranks, and then why she thinks Carissa's not the GOAT. I disagree with that. I think Carissa's already done enough to prove that she is the greatest of all time in terms of women boxers, and she has so much more to prove, and she has much more career to do. But quite frankly, I think Carissa is the GOAT. I think that Cecilia Brackets is just jealous. I don't know if she is even interested in facing Clarissa Shields. She has not indicated that. I don't know if she will really want to do that. I think it's a suicide mission if she tries to do that. She gonna get obliterated by Carissa Shields. But as to her saving face and saying X, Y, and Z, that's up to her. That's her prerogative, you know. Katie Taylor, hell of a fighter. She's taking on Pursoon instead of Amanda Serrano. I thought Serrano would have um, gotten the nod, but apparently Eddie Hearn has other ideas. And so Amanda Serrano is not facing Katie Taylor, which is really a big pity because Amanda Serrano will face whoever, whenever, however, you know, that's Amanda Serrano, you know. Some people argue that Amanda Serrano is the GOAT and that Carissa is not. I disagree. Carissa has done unified. Uh, she's done unified two divisions, and the third one she's undisputed in. So I mean, unless you got some kind of a fighter who has done that in so many fights, Carissa is the pound for pound number one fighter in the women's world today, and all around she's already surpassed what any other woman in boxing has ever done already. Okay, she's like what 10 fights, and she's already done that. So, no, she is the GOAT, and that's easy to say because just look at the level of competition she's already faced. So, Cecilia Brækhus, who's been in one division for God knows how long, she's unified the division, became undisputed, but Carissa's done that and some in other divisions, and there's nobody that surpasses Carissa Shields. I'm sorry, and I'm not the biggest Carissa Shields fan. You know, I used to always criticize her for her boxing and stuff, but now looking at it, I mean, we got some good up and comers too. But at present, Carissa Shields is the GOAT. It is what it is, and she's about to prove further beyond a shadow of a doubt. And by the way, she called out Layla Ali, see if they could get on the undercard of Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr., put on an exhibition. So she called out Layla Ali. You know, Layla Ali would want an exhibition. It was like, let's do an exhibition there. I don't know if Layla Ali responded. I don't know what happened. We haven't heard anything yet. I think a lot of people don't like I said before in boxing, um, you got to be humble to make it to the top at boxing. You got to be able to listen. You got to be able to learn. And that means sometimes taking ass whoopings and shit. And the thing about Carissa Shields and Floyd Mayweather, both from Flint, Michigan, shout out to Flint, Michigan. Hope that they're getting the water supply addressed. And I don't know why it's taking so long. But the thing about these two people is they're very confident and they talk confidently. And they might, Carissa doesn't really shit talk. She just talks facts, right? What she tell you is the truth. Even Floyd, he was shit talking Oscar. Okay, he shit talked Oscar. He did not shit talk Pacquiao when they had to face each other, but he shit talked Pacquiao. Before that, he was just trash talking and shit. Um, he, he didn't really shit talk Zab Judah. Floyd do his shit talking sometimes, right? He shit talk Victor Ortiz. You know what I'm saying? Put his hands on Victor Ortiz, all kinds of shit. He shit talk. But shit talking meaning you ain't gonna do shit. You ain't gonna do shit. You know, that kind of thing. Floyd not really. He was very cerebral, like he would get in your head, but he's not really. When you think of shit talking, Floyd wasn't really. How to put it? He not really a shit talker that just talk off the top of his ass. Like he always back it up with some kind of fact. He back it up with something. He let you know your weakness. You know that kind of shit talk. That's the way how Floyd would do things. And he mess with you. He like to do a lot of mind games and mess with you. But otherwise, Floyd, not really a shit talk when you think about it. Carissa Shields, the same thing. She's very confident. She doesn't curse. She doesn't necessarily curse and swear, but she will shit talk you. She will shit talk you, get in your head and say, "I'm gonna beat your ass. I'm gonna give you bad ass beat. I'm gonna beat your ass." That kind of thing. So Carissa Shields is that kind of person, and she's outspoken. She talks her mind. She says her piece on different things, and I think that as a result of that, I think that a lot of people say, "Oh, she's just talking," but Kristen's not just talking. Like if you listen, everything she's saying, she's backing it up. You can't. She's not just like I said before. Obviously, she's a humble person because she has to take instruction. She has to learn. If she doesn't want to learn, then she's not going to take the instruction, right? So you have to be humble to learn in boxing, and you have to be able to learn. And if you feel nobody can teach you anything, that's the moment you in deep shit. You gonna be a step behind everybody else, right? And Floyd's a guy who's also willing to learn, you know. And you can see now he's a teacher. He's come to the status of teacher. So, um, Carissa Shields, um, is that kind of fighter. Anyway, I want to stay 2, 3 hours on this. I spent about 10 minutes more than I wanted to spend. But just to tell you guys, to touch you guys on the new breeds. Of course, the new breeds also having all that volume of information from the past greats and so on. Obviously, they get to select what they want to select, and they got all this archive of information. And the trainers have all this archive of information to study from. And then, of course, we got the generational past now. There's another thing I want to say. I said it before, but I'm going to say it again. They talk about all these old great trainers as if they didn't train boxers who boxed under them and learned those precepts. So a lot of people talk about, this great trainers like Eddie Futch went away, Nazim Richardson went away, they got the Roger Mayweathers. But what they forget is that there are also boxers that have been trained by these people who are training people right now, you know, and they have the old school trainings. Now, the only unfortunate thing, which you know, uh, world class boxing does is they kind of archive the teachings so that everybody can go back and look at the teachings. Whereas guys like Eddie Futch and all Emmanuel Stewart and all these guys who and Roger Mayweather and so on, you can't know the teachings unless somebody been trained by them. Jeff Mayweather, all these guys, somebody trained by them. Floyd Mayweather Senior. You know, um, great trainers who passed away. A lot of great trainers have passed away. And then we had Pernell Whitaker who was doing his own training. He had his own fighters under him as well, and he passed away. And the untimely death of these guys sometimes affects boxing. But we have to remember, these guys also train people, boxers. Some guys who were actually boxing and they turned trainers. Or there were guys from the amateurs who turned trainers. Sometimes you see Vasily Lomachenko and his father, Anatoly Lomachenko, and you say, well, you know, Vasily's father was a boxer, but he don't have no lineage. Well, he does have a lineage because he probably was trained by another boxer, and so on and so on. So there is a lineage. Um, might not have been well known, but lineage. And what you find is contemporaries of a certain era would have passed on the information to others. Some of those contemporaries were guys who actually fought guys in that era, and you won't remember their names, but they became trainers. You see, and so the knowledge is still passed down. They may not have been great boxers, but they passed down the knowledge as trainers to other people. And see, that's the thing I think a lot of people don't understand with boxing lineage. You got to remember, there's a whole bunch of fighters in this particular era, so the knowledge is still trickling down, sort of as we say in the background, is trickling down to other people. It's not just the legendary fighters. Take for instance Mickey Bay, right? Mickey Bay is a trainer right now. But Mickey Bay knows Emmanuel Stewart. He was trained under him. He was trained under, Mayweather Senior. He was trained under all of the legendary great trainers. That's something that Jesse Vargas is doing as well. He's going to all the legendary trainers, getting a little something from them, because I suspect, like Mickey Bay and like some other people, let Jesse Vargas, who articulates boxing quite well, will probably be training fighters later on, also in his career, if he's not training them right now. And so my point is that um, you have to pick the brains of the boxers as well, and that's where a lot of people miss out. Take for instance Derek James. Derek James was actually a pro. He was a very good amateur as well. Came up with Floyd, um, bigger guy though, and he's an excellent trainer today because he was old school trained. But Derek James will tell you some of the old school things that people say, like you can't teach power, is bullshit. That old school knowledge is obsolete. The new school tells us this: you can teach power. You can teach people to punch harder. And he knows how. So there are There are several different schools of thought that once was dogma that's not dogma anymore. And that's why I try to explain to you guys, like, boxing has changed from what you know it to be. And guys literally now can calibrate and measure out if a guy's going to go 12 rounds, if a guy's going to go 8 rounds, if a guy's going to get 10 rounds. They can get you at optimum peak condition for those rounds. If you're going 15 or 20, they can get you optimized in peak condition to go 15, to go 20, to go 10, to go 5. I was listening to David Benavidez, and they were sparring like 15 rounders in preparation for the 10 rounders. So it's like it's a different world we live in, folks, where guys don't just gas out when they're fighting anymore. And you know what? They push themselves to different tempos or paces. So if that's another thing that a lot of people don't understand. You have to prep yourself for any tempo, any speed, any pace. Can you go hard for 12 rounds? You should be able to do that. Should also be able to control the tempo of a fight and be able to do the fight at the tempo you want to use, which is most beneficial to you, whether it's a high tempo or whether it's a low tempo. We see Leo Santa Cruz. Leo Santa Cruz be going at a very high tempo for 12 freaking rounds, man. This man be going at a high tempo for 12 rounds. That's some new school shit. You know what I'm saying? They talk about Harry Craig back in the day. I never seen him. I see he's a little bit wily kind of thing. Leo ain't wily. Leo was pretty exacting with his punches, and he's crisp from round 1 to round 12. Leo be throwing 100 and something punches from round 1 to round 12. Now, obviously, you know, how he throws those punches and the way in which he throws those punches determines whether he gets counted. But my point being that, and the more you get countered with punches is because uh, we are cerebral animals. Nobody likes to get hit. So um, the more punches that you throw and the more active you are throwing punches, depending on the angle you're at, because there's a lot of preconditions to this. And the more you get countered while you're throwing, is the less likely you're going to throw. No matter if you were a bull like Marcos Maidana, I mean, a guy could be tagging you and catching you in between those punches. If you're getting counted in between those punches repeatedly, you are going to slow down your punch count. That's just what it is, because you're going to have to focus on your defense. So you just don't go straight in, walking through the guy trying to walk through all his punches. You might just get clipped, and then you might just get dropped or hurt really bad. So you can't be super reckless with it. Obviously, if your game plan is such that you're trying to get to the guy and he's tagging you all the time, you have to revise your game plan and say, okay, um, even though I want to stop this dude or beat him up really bad, I shouldn't be getting hit that much to get to there. So and it could cause a momentum shift. So, like, for instance, if the guy can tag you really easily, that could cause a momentum shift, and especially if he's a counterpuncher, right? And he's tagging you up like that. Now, it depends, because sometimes a guy could be tagging you up, but you're not really feeling nothing, so you just keep on pressing the action. But for guys who literally hitting you in between spaces, and then you find it difficult to hit them more and more as the fight goes along, because smart fighters assess situations, and then they're going to implement things that work for them, and once it works for them, they're going to do it until you make a change. And if you got to make an adaptation or adjustment, means it's got to be something that you mentally practice already, one, and two, you got to be able to it's going to make you pause or freeze. I was just looking at Tommy Ankelo's video with Paul Spadafora, where showing you how a southpaw could freeze a fighter. You can make a fighter freeze, even if it's for a split second. That's all you need, and make them plant. So, for example, how do you make a fighter plant? Well, one of the things you do is you're going to feint them, because remember, feints are very important. So, how you do that? Say, for instance, you face to face with a guy. He's orthodox, you southpaw, and he throws a jab, and you change levels on him, right? And you feint like you're gonna throw back a jab. So he gonna drop to your level. He gonna mirror you, and when he drops, he's basically planted himself because once you change levels, you can't move and change levels. Some people can do it, but when you change levels, you literally plant yourself, and that's when you shoot the straight left, right? You shoot the straight left and you pivot around him because that's what Manny Pacquiao would do. You shoot the straight left and you pivot around the guy because he's planted. So you froze him for a second. He can't do nothing because he just changed levels. As he's changing and he's dipping into the punch, you pivot around him because he's planted. Because he can't move his feet at that point. Once you sit you now, he's gonna have to turn to you to make sure that you know you don't have the advantage on him. So these are little tricks in the game. I guess Vasily Lomachenko will try to use that against Teofimo Lopez. Um, and the way to negate that is real simple. You throw a jab, the guy changes levels, you take a step back off your jab or you pivot off your jab. Once you pivot off the jab, you take away the angle so he cannot go weak side on you. It's negated. All right, so in boxing, these are the kinds of things that we talk about, and this is just basic boxing, but boxing 101, the fundamentals of boxing. And guys like Mike Tyson, for example, we're talking two orthodox fighters, Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr. Mike Tyson, if you can freeze Mike Tyson, which you can do with that style, you can freeze him it just enough to work your way around him, keep him off balance all the time. Because Mike Tyson needs to plant. He's going to dip low, plant before he can explode and come at you. And when he's exploding, coming at you, he's coming. He can't. He could change directions, but to do that, he had to plant again. See, Mike has to go low to high to low. So like when he did the double left hook against the guy, he went low, then he leaped off through the left hook, and it went low again, leaped off through the left hook. Mike Tyson and Ricky Hatton do a really interesting thing. And just breaking down a little bit. Mike Tyson, sometimes he would get low and he'll leap off with a leaping jab. A leaping jab. It's crazy. I see Ricky Hatton do that. He has a leaping jab as well. And but Ricky Hatton has quick feet. So Ricky Hatton's feet's always moving. Ricky Hatton don't plant at all. His feet always moving. And Ricky Hatton will hop off. He would just hop off of a strange angle. You know what I'm saying? I've seen him throw a left hook right across the body of a guy and clip him. It's just crazy. Ricky Hatton was amazing with his offense because it was very awkward and unorthodox. And yeah, he used to rough you up on the inside as well and use his physical strength on you. But he used to do a lot of other things that were just unique to Ricky Hatton. Now I'll break down Ricky Hatton a little bit. He's a unique boxer. I've not seen anything like him. I just told you about the leaping jab that Ricky Hatton had. I think he almost dropped Floyd with a leaping jab, actually. And Mike Tyson does the same thing. He'll either spare jab you, or he would a leaping jab. That's right. Or he may anyway. So just talking about those things because again, the nitty gritty of boxing is really important for people to understand. If you don't understand the nitty gritty of boxing, you really can't appreciate what each and every fighter brings to the table. And if you really can't talk about it, because if you don't understand the skills of a fighter, then you don't understand the style of the fighter. You see what the fighter could do in the ring. You have to understand what a fighter could do in the ring. It's kind of like if you're looking at football teams for American guys, American football teams, you know what this guy does as a linebacker, you know what that guy does as a running back, and so on and so on and so on, what they specialize to do. Well, it's the same thing with boxing and skills. This fighter, he has a particular style. His style is this. This is what he can do in the ring. This is what he does. This is his signature moves. If you don't understand that in boxing, you see, you got to be able to break it down. You got to be able to break it down. This guy, he does this, and this. Okay? If you don't understand that, then how the hell you can talk about the guy's style? I listen to people talk about, this fighter, he don't do a lot of running. And I said, fuck you. Because you really don't know boxing. He don't do a lot of running. I'm like, shut the fuck up. You an ignorant ass fucking fan. Sorry about the cussing. It really annoys me because they don't know how to break down shit. They don't know what's going on in the ring. It annoys me. to no end. As a boxing fan, it annoys me because when I see some beautiful things that happen in the boxing ring, that shit that just cannot be replicated, you know, it really annoys me. Okay. When they say, oh, Roy Jones Jr., he was just a great athlete, I'm like, fuck no. And finally, somebody who confirmed this, Tom Yankello, he said, James Tony, you're just being a good athlete. No. And I said, Roy knows the fundamentals of boxing, but then he went outside the scope of boxing and started looking at animals and how they fought. All right. And it's clear that Roy knows the fundamentals. He jabs, he pivots very well. You know, I just said that he boxer, but I've seen his inside game improve by leaps and bounds for this last couple of fights. So he can fight on the inside, you know, and his angling, his pivot work, and where he's putting his head and everything is really, really looking good. And the way our Roy is looking on the pads really looks impressive. I'm not gonna lie, he looks very impressive. He looks bigger and stronger than when I last saw him at cruiserweight. He looked a little bit more sloppy. He was a little bit more sloppy and slower. So I think he's going to be in peak condition for this Mike Tyson fight. I just wanted to say that. I know we're talking the new breed. I know we're talking about boxing and stuff, but I just wanted to talk about that knowledge base on that. I think he's going to be in tip-top shape for the Tyson fight. I think he's fully motivated and ready to go. And he likes that people are underestimating him. He likes that they think that there's danger there for him, you know. But I'm not gonna say nothing yet. I'm not gonna give my decision on who I think is gonna to I mean, Tyson is Tyson. He's dangerous. He could stop Roy. I think they're gonna go all out. Screw what the commissioner or everybody else is saying. It might be an exhibition, but there are lots of exhibitions where guys knock down other guys and knock them out. Just up to recently, Floyd was in Japan and he knocked out some guys, you know, in exhibition. So I truly believe that if there's a knockout in the exhibition, there should be a knockout in the exhibition. But I just don't think. Well, I'm not going to say anything more about it. I'm just going to watch it how Roy's training, how he's looking. And I'm just going to say this. I'm going to say this. If Roy's in any kind of physical shape, I think he's going to exceed what he usually is. Any kind of physical shape where he can do pivot work, stay mobile, and just be Roy. Any kind of physical shape. What I mean by that is, I know he has bad knees and all of that, but I have the strong belief that Roy don't have to do all that set of moves he needs to do with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's an offensive weapon, and while he's mounting his offense, he has been in the past when he was younger defensively responsible. If he can be defensively responsible by mounting his offense, he's going to do a hell of a lot better than the older Mike Tyson, who sometimes used to come straight down the jabbing line, and he used to try and change levels and duck under it instead of bobbing around it and weaving around it. I see him in his training videos doing that. I know it's a hell of a lot harder to do it in sparring. And at 54 years old, he's gonna feel it. But once he is taking good precautions to rest his body, I would suggest he kind of stay away from that weed for a moment so he can get his lung capacity could be better. You know, because that weed not gonna help him. He's gonna be tired quicker, you know, with all that smoke going in his system. But other than that, I think that you know, if he can bob and weave really well, because see, the thing with Tyson is he come out like an animal chasing you down and stuff, right? But at a certain point in time, he stands right in front of you. He just stands right in front of you with his peekaboo. You can't do that, Mike Tyson. You can't do that. You gotta go hard for 8 rounds. I don't know how you gonna do that, first of all, at 54. That part is wishful thinking. So we know that's not gonna happen. But what we do know is he gonna come out, you know, he gonna try and get his rhythm together as quickly as possible and try and hunt down Roy. Roy, on the other hand, you know, this is what he does. This is what he do. This is what Roy does. So we're gonna see. A lot of people, uh, think that Roy's gonna get knocked out. So that's good. That's good for boxing. That's what makes the fight risky. And I'm not gonna say that he's not gonna get knocked out. Roy has been knocked out several times by several different fighters, so that is a possibility. Like just takes his head off. But this fight is the fight that it is, and it's interesting because we know Roy's not a true heavyweight. We know Mike Tyson's a small heavyweight, but he's been a devastating heavyweight. And that's what makes this fight very interesting. And the fact that Roy always wanted he wanted this fight with Tyson. That's what makes this fight super interesting. Um, it reminds me of a highly anticipated fight a lot of people wanted to see between Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe. And maybe, this, 2020 is an interesting time. On my just to say this, on my other channel where we're dealing with movies and DC, DC's coming out, DC fandom's coming out on the 20, I believe it's the 22nd or 24th, somewhere there, of this month, which is probably 2 Saturdays from now. And they're merging the old with the new. And I get the feeling in 2020, as much as there's all kinds of negative things happening in the world today, that's the old that's merging with the new that we're looking at. And it's an exciting time in that respect. So that's all I got for now on what you need. You're watching my channel. If you like what you're seeing, don't forget that you can subscribe, share, like, comment, and you can donate via Western Union or MoneyGram. New breed, baby. It's a different time, but still at the same time, we got some old breed up in there. And I think this is the era where even the older heads can monetize their worth and give us some great fights. Peace.